Let's cut straight to the raw nerve. Have you ever talked just to avoid staring into the void? Not casual quiet, but the kind of silence that feels like free fall. No words to grip, no validation to cushion the drop. That's the silence society has trained you to flee. From the moment you could form words, you were fed a story, a dangerous, soul-crushing myth, that power belongs to the loudest. From childhood, you're conditioned to treat silence like a threat. In classrooms, they call quiet students shy, as if speaking were a moral obligation. In meetings, pauses are labeled awkward, as if discomfort were a flaw rather than a revelation. Somehow, along the line, you became the classroom hand raiser, the boardroom bulldozer, the influencer screaming into your camera. Silence for you becomes a vacuum to stuff with platitudes, emojis, anything to prove you're alive, relevant, winning. But why does silence terrify you? Because it's the one space where you can't hide. When you're not performing, not defending, not selling, you're left alone with the parts of yourself you've buried. The unspoken regrets, the questions without answers, the dread that maybe, without the noise, you're just nothing. Society weaponizes that fear. It tells you silence is weakness, irrelevance, defeat. So you fill the void, handing over your power like loose change to anyone demanding a reaction. Here's the truth they'll never admit. Silence isn't empty, it's ammunition. Every time you resist the urge to fill it, you disarm the world's ability to manipulate you. Think about the last time someone tried to provoke you. Their words were traps, baited with your need to be heard, understood, right. But when you didn't bite, when you let their accusations hang in the air like smoke, their certainty curdled. Your silence forced them to confront the hollowness of their own words. That's the power play no one teaches. While others chase the illusion of control through chatter, silence lets you dismantle it. This is the first lie you've swallowed, that speech equals strength, that the loudest voice wins. But noise is the refuge of the insecure. It's the child screaming for attention, the politician dodging a question, the partner deflecting blame. True power doesn't shout. It waits, it listens. It lets the world unravel itself. When you refuse to engage, you expose the scaffolding holding up others' facades. Their need to explain, justify, dominate, it all crumbles under the weight of your stillness. And here's the brutal pivot. The more you fear silence, the more you confess. Every rushed reply, every nervous laugh, every over-explained text, it's all a surrender. You're handing your opponents a script to manipulate you. But silence? Silence is the void where their tactics dissolve. Let them rant. Let them plead. Let them twist in the winds of their own insecurity. Your quiet isn't passive. It's a demolition crew. It doesn't just level the battlefield. It reveals there was never a battle to begin with. Silence isn't a retreat. It's a detonator. It's the moment you step off the stage and watch the audience panic because the script they wrote for you no longer applies. Manipulators, narcissists, emotional mercenaries, they're all addicts. Their drug, your reaction, your anger, your tears, your frantic explanations. Without it, they're left chasing a high they can't replicate. Here's how it works. When someone tries to provoke you, they're not just attacking, they're fishing. They cast a line baited with insults, guilt, or drama, waiting for you to tug back. Your reaction is their reward. But when you cut the line, when you give them nothing but a flat, unbroken stare, their entire strategy collapses. They'll double down, scream louder, invent new accusations. But it's just thrashing. Your silence has turned their game into a solo performance, and the audience is walking out. This is the psychological jujitsu of silence. It redirects their energy back at them. They came armed with words, but you've handed them a mirror. Suddenly they're not fighting you, they're fighting their own reflection. Their rants become confessionals, Their accusations sound like pleas. And the longer you hold the silence, the more they unravel, desperate to label you cold or heartless because they can't process the absence of fear. Take negotiations. Amateurs rush to fill silence with concessions, lowering their price just to end the tension. But professionals, they lean into it. They let the silence after a proposal thicken like fog until the other side starts bargaining against themselves. That's the dark genius of silence. It weaponizes imagination. What you don't say becomes a labyrinth in their mind. They'll hallucinate threats, invent ulterior motives, and sabotage their own position, all while you stand still. But don't mistake this for inaction. Silence is a siege. It's starving the enemy of the oxygen they need to survive, your attention. When a coworker undermines you in a meeting, your instinct is to fire back. But what if you didn't? What if you let their words hang, let the room taste the pettiness, let their smirk fade into doubt? Your silence becomes an indictment. The team will wonder why they're so desperate to hurt you. The boss will question their motives. All you did was refuse to play. This is why emotional predators hate silence. They need drama like a fire needs fuel. Your tears, your rage, your knee-jerk apologies. That's their currency. But silence? Silence is a counterfeit bill. It looks like compliance but spends like defiance. When you deprive them of your reactions, you expose their weakness. They can't manipulate what they can't see. And here's the ultimate power shift. Silence forces others to define you. Without your words to guide them, they'll project their fears onto your calm. Are you arrogant? Dangerous? Calculating? Let them wonder. Let their theories spiral. Because the moment they're busy dissecting your silence, they're no longer attacking, they're defending. They're justifying their obsession with you. And in that shift, you've already won. So remember, words are the weapons of the impatient. Silence is the weapon of the strategic. It's not about saying less, it's about making every unspoken moment mean more. Let them exhaust themselves trying to crack your code. Let them writhe in the spotlight of their own insecurity. Your silence isn't just a shield. It's the scalpel that carves their agenda into dust. Silence doesn't negotiate, it interrogates. Imagine sitting across from someone who's lied to you. Not a stranger, but someone you trusted. You say nothing. Just hold their gaze. Watch their eyes dart, their throat tighten, their rehearsed excuses shrivel in the furnace of your quiet. That's the mirror. Your silence reflects back the cracks in their facade, forcing them to confront the rot they've hidden. This is the alchemy of silence. It transmutes their certainty into doubt. Take social dynamics. At a party, someone mocks you with a backhanded compliment. Love how you don't care what people think. The room waits for your reaction. A laugh, a deflection, a counter jab. But you stay silent. Not out of hurt, but strategy. The insult hangs, unclaimed. The smirks around you falter. The speaker's confidence curdles into panic. I meant it as a joke, they stammer, over-explaining, digging their own grave. Your silence didn't just deflect the attack, it turned their weapon into a shovel. This is why cult leaders, dictators, and abusive partners fear silence. They rely on your reactions to validate their power. Your outrage is their proof of control. Your tears are their trophies. But silence? Silence is a void where their dominance evaporates. They'll escalate, louder demands, wilder accusations, but each outburst only magnifies their desperation. Your calm becomes an indictment, a live broadcast of their insecurity. And here's the pivot. The more someone resists silence, the more they confess. The friend who bombards you with texts after a fight? They're not seeking resolution. They're begging you to absolve their guilt. The influencer posting non-stop life updates? They're terrified of the silence where their irrelevance might surface. Your refusal to engage doesn't just expose them, it liberates you. You're no longer a character in their drama, you're the audience, and the show is collapsing under its own weight. But the mirror cuts both ways. Your tolerance for silence reveals your own mastery. When you don't flinch, don't justify, don't beg for understanding, you telegraph an unspoken truth. You are not afraid of what they'll find in the quiet. Let them dissect your motives. Let them spin theories about your coldness or arrogance. While they autopsy your silence, you're already 10 moves ahead, untouchable and free. Society isn't just addicted to noise, it's allergic to silence. Think of the rituals forced upon you. Laugh at bad jokes to avoid awkwardness. Answer texts instantly to prove you're present. Apologize for existing too quietly in loud rooms. From birth, you're gaslit into believing silence is a social debt, one you must pay with attention, reactions, and perpetual availability. But here's what they don't tell you. Every time you break silence to appease others, you auction pieces of your autonomy. That coworker who interrupts your focus with urgent non-issues, you respond, and they learn your time is negotiable. That relative who probes your life choices at family dinners, you justify yourself, and they mark you as insecure. The system trains you to treat silence like a fire, to stamp it out before it spreads. But what if you let it burn? Just take a look at the modern workplace. Meetings crammed with hollow debates, performative brainstorming, collaboration that's just consensus theater. The loudest voices get promoted, not the wisest. Now imagine you stop playing. You speak only when necessary. You let the room choke on its own noise. At first they'll label you disengaged, then they'll panic. Your silence becomes a referendum on their BS. Every pointless meeting, every empty metric, every jargon-filled email, it all withers under your refusal to pretend it matters. This is the silent rebellion, rejecting the cult of engagement. Social media algorithms demand hot takes. Stay quiet. News cycles bait you with outrage. Don't click. Trolls hijack your comments. Let them scream into the abyss. Your silence isn't indifference. It's a boycott. You're crashing the attention economy by refusing to be a node in its network. And here's the brutal truth institutions don't want you to know. Silence is the original cancel culture. Governments censor dissent, but they can't censor your quiet. Brands pay millions for viral campaigns, but they can't monetize your stillness. The system needs your voice, your hot takes, your reviews, your data to sustain itself. When you mute the noise, you don't just opt out. You expose the entire charade as a puppet show with no audience. But the deepest rebellion is internal. Society conditions you to fear your own mind, to scroll instead of think, to binge instead of reflect. Silence forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've numbed with Netflix, podcasts, and doom scrolling. It's not emptiness, it's reckoning. The regrets you've buried, the dreams you've deferred, the person you sold to fit in. This is why most flee silence. It's a courtroom where they're both defendant and judge. Yet here's the paradox. In that courtroom lies your power. When you stop outsourcing your worth to likes, retweets, and praise, you reclaim your sovereignty. Your value isn't a group project. Your truth doesn't need a focus group. Let the world mistake your quiet for weakness. Let them drown in their noise. While they're busy performing, you'll be rebuilding, brick by silent brick, a self that can't be bought, broken, or begged. Silence doesn't just distort reality, it bends time. Think of a courtroom during a cross-examination. The lawyer asks a damning question. The witness hesitates. 2 seconds pass. 5. The jury leans forward. The air thickens. By the 10th second, the witness is confessing to crimes they didn't commit. Why? Because silence is temporal warfare. To the silent, it's a breath. To the trapped, it's a life sentence. This is the dark art of tempo control. Most people operate on borrowed time, racing to respond, to fix, to resolve. But silence hijacks their clock. When you refuse to react, you force others to marinate in the agony of not knowing. Every second they spend waiting for your move is a lifetime spent doubting theirs. Take high-stakes poker. Amateurs bluff with chips. Pros bluff with silence. They call a bet, then freeze. No twitch, no glance, no tells. The opponent's confidence cracks. They fold a winning hand, not because they were outplayed, but because silence stretched their nerves into tripwires. Here's the science. Under stress, the brain's amygdala hijacks logic, warping time perception. A 30-second silence feels like 30 minutes to someone braced for attack. Interrogators exploit this. They ask a question, then shut up. The suspect sweats, rambles, confesses, not to end the pain of the question, but to escape the torture of the pause. Your silence weaponizes this glitch. Let a colleague demand an instant decision. Let a rival trash talk your reputation. Wait. Let the clock in their head accelerate. Watch them backtrack, sweeten their offer, retract their insults. All to end the excruciating wait for your counterpunch. But here's where it transcends tactics. Silence doesn't just manipulate time, it owns it. Society runs on manufactured urgency. Reply in 5 minutes or lose the deal. Limited stock. Act now. These are traps for the reactive. When you resist the tempo, you expose the farce. Let the deadline pass. Let the inbox pile up. Let the once-in-a-lifetime offer expire. Your silence reveals their desperation. The salesman calling daily. He'll drop his price by 40% when you stop answering. The influencer demanding a public apology. They'll delete their posts when you refuse to acknowledge them. This is why predators, corporate, emotional, political, hate silence. They need you twitchy, impulsive, addicted to the drip feed of instant gratification. Your calm unravels their entire ecosystem. A CEO announces layoffs, expecting panic. You respond with stone-faced silence. Now they're scrambling to justify, to clarify, to beg for your outrage. A partner threatens to leave unless you beg them to stay. You say nothing. Suddenly, they're the ones pleading. Silence flips the script. Their ultimatums become pleas. Their power plays become self-sabotage. Master this, and you master the most lethal form of influence, the kind that lives rent-free in others' minds long after you've left the room. Your silence becomes a phantom stopwatch, ticking in their skull at 3 a.m. They'll rehearse arguments you'll never hear, draft emails you'll never read, all because you weaponized the one thing they can't control, their own decaying clock. Silence isn't a tactic, it's an autopsy. Your silence, theirs. It doesn't matter. The moment you stop numbing yourself with noise, you're forced onto the operating table, your insecurities splayed open, your regrets laid bare, the parts of yourself you've silenced, screaming for attention. This is the real work. Not controlling others, but confronting the chaos you've buried under a lifetime of distractions. Society sells you noise as a survival tool. Play a podcast while you work. Cue up a show while you eat. Scroll while you shit. The message is clear. Never be alone with your thoughts. And for good reason, a mind left unchecked becomes a rebel. It questions the grind. It doubts the dogma. It wonders if the life you've built is a prison or a performance. Silence is the scalpel that cuts through the anesthesia. Most people crumble here. They'll label you cold for sitting quietly at dinner while others gossip. They'll call you arrogant for skipping the meeting's petty debates. What they're really saying is, your calm terrifies me, because your silence forces them to face their own addiction to chatter. The endless Zoom calls that could have been emails, the family dramas that could have been ignored, the self-help books that could have been replaced with 5 minutes of brutal self-honesty. True power isn't carved from external victories. It's mined in the silent trenches of your mind. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote his greatest meditations in the dead of night, alone. Nietzsche wandered the Alps for years in near-total silence, birthing philosophies that shattered civilizations. They didn't mute the world, they muted the noise to hear the whispers of their own genius. But here's the brutal pivot. You can't weaponize external silence until you've survived internal silence. That's the gauntlet. Sit in a room with no phone, no music, no escape. Within minutes, your mind will riot. It'll replay every humiliation, every failure, every what-if you've ever suppressed. This is the test. Most flee back to the noise, but if you stay, if you let the storm rage until it exhausts itself, you'll find the eye of the hurricane. A stillness no adversity can breach. From this core, you operate differently. The coworker's snark, it dies in the void of your calm. The online troll, they're shouting into a chasm. Even your own failures lose their fangs. Miss a promotion? Sit in silence instead of spiraling. The anger will rise, then fade. The clarity that follows is nuclear. You'll see solutions where others see defeat. This is the final truth. Silence isn't about controlling others. It's about reclaiming yourself. Every moment you spend in deliberate quiet is a brick in the fortress of your mind. Let the world burn with its incessant noise. You've built a shelter no storm can touch. The greatest lie ever sold is that power must be loud, that influence requires volume, that respect demands explanation. But history's true titans knew better. Mandela endured 27 years in silence, bending apartheid's spine with stoicism. Turing cracked Nazi codes in quiet rooms, never raising his voice. The loudest forces in nature, hurricanes, explosions, riots, burn out fast. It's the silent forces that endure. Tectonic plates shifting continents, glaciers carving valleys, black holes devouring light. Here's the paradox they'll weaponize against you. The quieter you become, the more power you wield. Not because silence is mystical, but because it's a filter. It sifts the authentic from the performative. Let them posture. Let them drown in their own echoes. The longer you stay silent, the more their words reveal who they truly are. The clout chaser oversharing trauma for likes. The co-worker inflating contributions to hide incompetence. The partner rewriting history to dodge accountability. This is why silence terrifies the status quo. Loudness can be controlled. It's a barking dog, predictable, manipulable, easily chained. But silence is a virus. It spreads doubt in systems built on noise. Governments pass laws against protests, but how do you outlaw a population that stops reacting? Brands pay influencers to trend, but how do you monetize an audience that stops listening? Your silence isn't just resistance, it's systemic collapse. And here's the ultimate power shift. Silence doesn't demand respect, it commands it. When you stop explaining your boundaries, people learn to read your stillness. When you stop defending your decisions, your resolve becomes unassailable. So let's cut the pretense. You've felt it. The pull to stay small, to beg for belonging, to kneel at the altar of others' opinions. That ends now. From this moment, your silence is your throne. Not a retreat, but a citadel. Not a void, but a sovereign state. When you choose silence, you don't hide, you rule. They'll call you arrogant. They'll call you cruel. They'll mistake your quiet for surrender. Good. Let them. While they're busy shouting at ghosts, you'll be rebuilding your legacy in the bedrock of what really matters. Not the noise of the crowd, but the quiet of your resolve. Not the theater of approval, but the sovereignty of your unmoved mind. Think of the last time words betrayed you. When you over-explained to a partner and sounded desperate, overshared in a meeting and lost respect, or snapped back at a troll and became their puppet. Remember that gut punch regret? That sinking, why did I even speak? This is your wake-up call. Every word you waste trying to control others' perceptions is a bullet they'll use against you. This video isn't motivation, it's an intervention. Your silence isn't empty, it's a vault where real power compounds. From this moment, stop feeding their games, stop handing them your voice. Let your stillness say what your words never could. I owe you nothing. The world will try to provoke you, bait you, break your resolve. Let it. Watch how quickly their certainty crumbles when met with your unshakable quiet. Reclaim your power, say less, win more. If you are done being puppet for clout chasers, then drop it as a comment and hit the like button. Let it be your oath to wield silence as the weapon they'll never disarm.